Join me this week as we make some slices of pumpkin pie, complete with whipped cream, for the dolls' holiday feast. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy this project is. All right, we are going to start with a crust. And once again, I have the Primo clay in ecru, and I've rolled it out to the 4th setting on my pasta machine. This is half a package of clay. And rolled it out, number 4 setting. It's fairly thin because a pie crust should not be really thick. Unfortunately, my tray was a little dirty when I started. And so my clay got a little dirty, so hopefully none of that will show. Now, we don't want any big, thick spots. We're going to squeeze that out. And that it picked up from my pasta machine. And okay, get it worked down in. This is where it's really a downside to have nails, because my nails are making holes in the clay. I want in there. Now, we didn't use TLS today because we are not going to glue this into the pan. Today we are going to pull our clay out. Now, I've decided I'm doing a kind of a cool treatment on the outside of my crust, but the next step on the crust we'll have to wait till it's filled. So I'm going to pull my clay off to the side. I'm going to make sure this is as even as I want it. I can trim it up some more later. And now I want this to set for at least an hour or so, because you know how when you get clay out of the package and you start working with it and conditioning it, it gets soft. And when you set it down and leave it alone, it firms back up. That's what I want my crust to do. I want this to firm back up before I start putting the clay in for the filling. So when this has had time to set up and firm up a bit, I'll come back and we'll go to the next step. Alright, so for you it was a moment. For me it was like almost a week, because it's been a really busy week. So this has been sitting, so this is nicely solidified. I went to get sweet potato scalpy, and my Joanne's didn't have that, but they had something better that I've never used before. The scalpy souffle in, of all colors, pumpkin. I think it's a pretty darn good color. They also had Fimo cognac, which I think would also work. So what I'm going to do, I'm not sure, I bought 2 packages. I don't know how much it's going to take. This is the first time I've done a pie this size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take portions of the clay and kind of get it kneaded up. See if I can even get this. Get it softened, and then I'm going to put it in and fill my pie shell up to how full I want it, which will be up about to where the ridges on the pie pan end, I think. Started. Whoops, my cell phone's not on silent. Oopsie. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take small portions. I'm going to keep this on the tray. And I'm going to push this in and get this nice and solid and filled. And I'm going to do that off camera because this is going to take a while. So I'm going to go ahead and get this full. And when this is filled with clay, I'll come back and I'll show you how full I made it. We'll do the next step, and then we'll be able to get done. Alright, so I finally got this filled pretty well. I went about that far, and this was, I used an entire pack of clay, plus this is what's left from half a pack of this, of the second one. So about a pack and a half to fill this. That's one of the downsides of this scale. So now we're going to, and it's not perfectly lined up there, but it's okay. So now I'm going to get this crust color rolled out again. I should have prepared that before I turned the camera on, but I didn't think of it. I'm going to roll this down to, I think, the third setting. There's still orange in my... I still had some orange scraps in my roller, apparently. That's okay. Now I have this little leaf cutter. This little leaf cutter came from this set. It's mini metal cutters nature, made by Primo, the same people make the Sculpey and Primo clays. I got that at Joanne Fabrics when they had all the clay tools on for 50% off a while back. And there's a cat hair. There's always a cat hair. In my house, pretty much there's going to be a cat hair. Now I'm going to just cut out a bunch of these leaves, and since that's probably going to take a while, I'll do that off camera, and when I get them all cut out, or a bunch cut out, I will come back and show you what we're going to do. Alright, I have quite a few of these done. I'll probably have to go back and do more, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of lean them. And don't push down the front end of that one, of your first one. I'm going to attempt to make this kind of soften that a little bit. And I'm just going to overlap them. I guess it doesn't matter if I've got some orange bits on there. But I'm going to continue around since we are still working soft clay to soft clay, unbaked to unbaked. We don't need to worry about any TLS. So I am going to finish going around, and when I get all the way around, I'll show you how to put in the very last one. Alright, so I've gotten around to my starting place. I've got just enough to space for one more leaf, and I just kind of stick it in here, and now I do that. That way it looks continuous, just like you would on a real pie. So now let's put some chalk on here, just like we did last week. I'm not sure why I have a bead in my chalk. We're going to mainly, I think, use just our yellow ochre. I don't want to go too dark this week. I'll put a little bit of the darker color. If you find your leaves are loose, go ahead and put your finger down. You kind of use your finger to push them down. You remember, stay away from the reddish brown colors. That will really make your pumpkin look off. I think this color is going to be really good though. And go ahead and brush across your pie. And it's okay if your clay has some cracks in it. I made a pumpkin pie the other day for my son and I to have for dessert this last week, and it had a big crack in the top of it too. I think I'm going to take just a touch of the brown. My son is coming in from outside. Hopefully he won't come in and tell me something. Put it right in with that yellow ochre. And I don't like to use my clay knife for that, but that's what I had handy. Kind of mix it together there. I don't want to go too dark. And there's another cat hair. Oh my gosh. Now you could use any edge treatment to your crust that you want. You could have used something to make the lines in it like we did last week. You could make a nice, ruffly top edge. Whatever you like. I just thought this would be kind of fun, and I had the cutter here. I wanted to open that package of cutters up and use them. Now, this needs to sit in the freezer until it is solid. So I'm going to put it in the freezer. I'm going to check it in about probably 45 minutes. Because we want this frozen solid so it will pop out of this tin without distorting. So when this is frozen, I'll be back and we'll go to our next step. Alright, so this has now been in my freezer actually for about an hour and a half, and I'm really hoping it's going to come out now. I may mangle the pan. What I looked for was for it to kind of start giving way from the pan. Come on. And I think we're going to mangle this pan and have to move it to a fresh pan if we're going to put it back in a pan. Come on. I'm trying to do this without banging up my pie. Luckily, these little tins come 6 to a package. All right, there we go. That is a dead pan, but that's okay because I have more. All right, now we're going to get this turned over, and while it's still fairly frozen, because I want it, that's trying to break off. We are going to slice this. Okay, well that was a disaster. Okay, you know what? Change of plan. Okay, no big deal. This will actually, okay, since that decided to come off, that's okay. We can fix. You are going to see how to fix this. Cut it off neatly. So when you make yours, don't go all the way at the top. This is going to be one of those, I'm going to turn this into a teachable moment, okay? So we're going to turn this upside down, and we are going to cut off all of that. That's okay. It doesn't matter. All right. We'll redo that part. So while this is still fairly frozen, you can see it is thawing as I'm talking to you. I'm going to cut this into 8 wedges. We're going to change how we are doing our crust. Whoops, that is really not cut into very pretty wedges. I have that trouble with real pie too. I cannot get a real pie cut right either. Okay, yeah, I'm cutting with the right side of my blade. Okay. All right. So let's take this and we'll just put it back on. There, no one will know the difference. Just piece this back on, and now this pie needs to thaw for a bit before we can texture it. So I'm going to leave it on my table. Go ahead and cut that all up, put it around. That'll make a much neater looking edge anyway, now that we are let's see, that's a fairly narrow piece. Let's see, yeah, that's not going to come out even. We may have to cheat a little on this. I'll show you how to do that too. This is real crafting, folks. Complete with the errors. I'm just going to line these up here. Oh, we're going to have more than enough. It must have stretched as it came off. how that angle is. Alright, let's get these all pressed on, and we are going to let this thaw. Once this thaws out, we can start working on our texturing, because we need to texture this. We don't want it to just look like clay. Whoops, we've got something that we don't want. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to let this thaw, and when it's thawed, I will be back. Alright, so these have thawed out for a while now. They're still possibly somewhat frozen, so now's the time to kind of get your shapes the way you want them. Yeah, I suck at cutting pie. Real life too. I cannot cut a pie in even wedges. So now we are going to add some texture. And you've seen me do all of these things in the past on other projects. We're going to use a wire brush, and we're going to use a dental pick. If you don't have a dental pick, I've seen people use safety pins, sewing pins, whatever. So for this is for the crust. So any place you've got cut edges on your crust, you're just going to tease in little circles. What you're doing is you're raising up crumbs. My son is watching Netflix in the next room, so he's giggling. If the little hole there bothers you, you can take a little piece of clay and stuff in there, which is probably what I'm going to do in a second. I'll show you how to do that. Try not to do this up onto the orange part, to the pumpkin part, because it has a different texture. You're barely kind of tickling the edge. If it starts to gather up on your tool, then wipe it off on your hand or on something else. And just keep making these little tiny circles. Use your finger to kind of support the edge so it doesn't come loose. Alright, now let's take just a little tiny bit of orange, of the pumpkin colored clay. Let's see if we can kind of, just a little, we want to fill that hole in. Oops. And now, we're just going to take our, we're going to kick off the cat hair. First, we're going to get that worked in a little better so it doesn't show. And now we can kind of even it out. Now we're going to take our brush. You could use a toothbrush that's dedicated to clay for this, but I like the texture with the wire brush a little better. Let's see, in fact, I'm going to probably use both, because the wire brush gives a little more pronounced texture, and then you can kind of knock it back a little with the toothbrush. If you feel like your pie piece is too big, you can trim it down at this point. And then set that onto a paper plate. Do the rest of your pieces, your slices. Make sure everything is the way you want it, and then bake it. Both the clays call for baking at 275. I'm dropping that temperature down to 250, and I'm going to bake for about 40 minutes for this amount of clay per piece, because there's a lot of clay in each of these slices. When they are all baked and cooled, I'll be back and we'll do the next step. Alright, now these are all baked and cooled, and I trimmed up some of them to give them a little bit better shape. I should have started trimming them earlier, but we're going to put some whipped cream on top of these for the dolls. What I use for whipped cream is any of the fast-drying acrylic latex caulkings in the white. Usually use the paintable white. This is a different brand than I usually get because I got it at a different store. And what I've done, I cut the tip off and I taped on, I just used box tape, a Wilton number 21 star tip. And just like you're using this for whipped cream. Just like that. And we will probably need to glue our pie pieces down. Because of the edge I put on the crust, they're a little on the heavier side on the back side. Some of them are standing up, some of them are not. And if you prepped ahead, you could actually have taken some of that leftover clay that was used for the crust and made more of the little leaves and put those on. There is cat hair on these. I swear the cat was not close to this when I was working on it. Alright, and then oops, when you're done doing this, take the tip off of the caulking and be sure and clean that tip out really, really well with soapy water. And I usually use a Q-tip, and I have a little brush that Wilton makes for those to help clean it out, but it needs to be cleaned out before that dries. Now what I'm doing, I am reaching into my chalks for one of the reddish brown colors. And what I'm going to do, and I don't know where my regular knife went. Whatever. If you want to make it look like you've, whoops. Come on, cooperate with me, pie. Now this won't stick to the baked clay, but it should stick just fine to our whipped topping here, our whipped cream on our pies. So it'll look like you sprinkled a little cinnamon over it, which is a nice touch. So that is our cut wedges of pumpkin pie for the dolls for their holiday dinner. I hope you enjoyed this project. Be sure and check the blog post for more information and some pictures. And I apologize for this going up late. I know it did. But it's been a rough week around our house, and I just didn't get to this until last minute. So I hope you enjoy this. Like I said, check the blog, check the Facebook page. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me, and that's where I usually let you know if the videos or tutorials are going to be late. And I will talk to you later. Bye.